Excellent. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our session, Meet Our Graduates. We've got several of our graduates here tonight to talk to you and answer your questions that you may have about studying at Swansea or their career so far since graduating from Swansea. So my name is Jess Hammett and I'm a student recruitment officer here at the School of Law. So basically that means that I talk to students on a regular basis at things like open days. And also I'm here to answer any queries you may have about studying at Swansea. I'm also joined by two colleagues, Deb and Trish, who will be hosting tonight's session. And of course, our graduates that have made tonight happen. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm going to stop sharing now so you can see all of their faces on the screen. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm just going to quickly go around the screen so we can introduce ourselves so everybody knows who's here tonight. Deb, I don't know if you want to kick off, please.
Yeah, welcome everybody. Lovely to see so many people here. My name's Debbie Jones. I'm an Associate Professor of Criminology. I'm also Director of Undergraduate Criminology at Swansea. And basically that means that I have responsibility for ensuring that the programme is academically rigorous and that it's intellectually stimulating, all of those really exciting things that you want out of your degree. Before I came to university in 2008, I was police officer of the Metropolitan Police and I specialised in murder investigations and child protection inquiries as a detective in that role. What I currently teach is I teach modules on policing, as you'd expect, at undergrad and master's level. My research actually focuses on the regulation of the sex industry, and I've carried out a lot of that research with Professor Tracy Sagar. So some of the modules I teach on focus on that as well, so about criminalisation of sex and at master's level, human trafficking and modern slavery. I've also recently become very interested in the role of higher education and the way it can bring about desistance from offending. So that's another area of research I'm interested in, and I'm about to launch a new module this year that focuses on that out in the community with a group of people who are trying to desist from offending behaviours. So that's what I teach. Did I teach any of the panel is a question Jess has given us? Well, I did. I was really fortunate to teach Amelia, Connor and Hannah. And unfortunately, maybe for Amelia and Connor, I also supervised them in their undergrad dissertations. And for poor Amelia, again, I was her academic mentor for the duration of her studies. So I do feel I know all three of the criminology panelists tonight very well, and I won't share any of their guilty secrets with you. I'll keep them all to myself. So over to Trish.
Hi everybody, hello, my name is Trish Rees and I'm from the law department. Well, there's a School of Law. I teach on the medical law module, so I'm the module director for that, and also the medical law reproduction module, and they're optional modules that students can take in the second or third year of their studies. Other than that, I'm also the Director of Employability for the school, and I coordinate employability events across the all sort of parts of the school, so criminology and law and postgraduate. And I'm looking at everybody. I know everybody by name and by face mostly, but I've actually taught Callum. He took my module, took both of my modules at undergraduate level, so it's great to see him here tonight. Anyway, that's all I've got to say. I'll pass you on. I don't know who's next in line to say something.
I think it's me, Trish. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all and a real pleasure to be here. My name's Izzy Demudia. I graduated from Swansea in 1999 with a degree in law and German. I currently am the international COO for our asset management legal team at an investment bank, Morgan Stanley, as well as the international COO for the broader legal department. I think I'm handing over to Rian.
Hi, I'm Rian Jones. I graduated from Swansea with a law degree in 1998. I then went to bar school and was called to the bar in 1999. I moved to New York in 2001 and I've been practicing criminal defense law since that time in New York. I'm now a partner at a criminal defense firm here, and I represent people accused of crimes anywhere from petty crimes to homicide. I'm probably on my 8th homicide case this year. I guess that's it for now. Thank you.
You've unmuted Callum, so I can see you're ready.
Yeah.
Brilliant, thanks.
Hi all, good to see so many people attending. It's a real pleasure to be involved. I studied a straight law undergrad, single honours, and I graduated in 2019. I've just studied the bar course in London, and I'm currently studying a commercial LLM at Cambridge, and I'm hoping to go and practice at the commercial bar in England and Wales.
Hi everyone, my name is Connor. So my undergraduate was single honours in criminology and criminal justice. So I graduated from that just the year before Callum graduated. I then followed that with a master's in cybercrime and terrorism. And then currently I'm doing a PhD, so that warranted another master's in sort of human-centered computation. And now my PhD is kind of split between computer science and criminology. And then with that, I'm hoping to work in counterterrorism in the Welsh counterterrorism unit if possible, but if not, something else. Thanks.
Hiya everybody, my name is Amelia. I'm originally from the south of England, so Sussex. I came to Swansea to study an undergraduate degree. I then sent to a master's degree, and I now work at the university. So I work in widening access. So it's my job to sort of diversify the pool of students that we have at Swansea. So that's helping mainly school and college students from South West Wales, from underrepresented backgrounds. So that could be children that are currently in the care system, or it could just be geographical. So they're from a postcode area where not enough young people from that area are moving on to university.
And last but by no means least, Hannah.
Yeah, unmuted. Yeah, my name's Hannah Morgan. I graduated from Swansea from my undergraduate degree in 2017, and I've been working in prisons ever since. So I've worked in HMP Swansea, HMP Cardiff, HMP Park, sorry, and now I'm in HMP Cardiff. And I've done a variety of roles. I've been a resettlement caseworker. That was my first job after graduating from Swansea. Pretty quickly, I got the job straight away. And then I was also an NVQ assessor at HMP Swansea, so taking prisoners through an NVQ, which is a qualification I did whilst I was working. And yeah, I'm now a prison officer in HMP Cardiff, and I've been doing that for over a year now, just over a year. Yeah, 13 months, I think. So yeah, a bit of a variety there.
Excellent, brilliant. Oh, thank you very much all. It's really nice to hear all of the exciting things that you've gone on to do since graduating from Swansea. And thank you again so much for taking the time this evening to chat with our students. So I'm just going to hand over now to Trish to ask the first question. Debbie and Trish are kindly hosting tonight's session, so we'll be swapping some questions and asking different members of the panel to answer. But as I mentioned before, please feel free to submit any questions in the Q&A and our panel will be more than happy to answer them. Over to you, Trish. Neb, thank you.
Thanks, Jess. Well, the first question I want to ask tonight, I'm going to ask to Izzy first of all, and then I think I'm going to ask Callum, and I think it's also Rian, is it? The first question is actually, Izzy, why did you study law? What was the motivation for you deciding to embark on a law degree?
Thanks, Trish. So what I didn't divulge during my introduction is that I'm Nigerian by descent. And so for most Nigerian parents, they really offer three choices. You can be a doctor, you can be an accountant, or you can be a lawyer. I often joke that I really can't stand the sight of blood, so medicine was completely out of the picture. I am numbers dyslexic, so that was out of the question. So law really was the last choice. But on a serious note, I've always been drawn to human rights, defending the rights of individuals, particularly women. And so, you know, studying human rights law was initially my pull. I love writing, I love reading, and I thought that a law degree would set me in the path of ultimately practicing human rights. It's not lost on anyone that I'm very far from human rights. I work for a bank, I'm a COO. I ended up practicing law for a very short amount of time, but I've still managed to leverage my law degree in, you know, ensuring that individuals that I cover within my organization, and then more broadly, you know, kind of my passion projects in diversity and inclusion, require all of the skill sets that I picked up from law school and still focus on how I protect the rights of people and being treated equally and equitably regardless of where they are.
Oh, thank you, Izzy. It's really interesting to see people who've just gone on other career paths, do you know what I mean, rather than going down the traditional route, perhaps. So, Rhi, then, over to you. What was your motivation for studying law?
Is this an unusual answer, but it's true? And I think everyone who knows me knows the answer to this. Izzy probably knows what I'm going to say. So I wanted to be a teacher, and then I saw the movie In the Name of the Father, and I was just incensed by it. I was maybe 13, I think. And ever since I saw that film, I wanted to defend people and protect their rights and really fight against miscarriages of justice. And so ever since then, that's what I was committed to do. And I've been able to do that, particularly since I moved to New York, because there are so many miscarriages of justice here. And I've also had the absolute pleasure. Our firm works in conjunction with, and I don't know if anyone's heard of them, but Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld, who founded the Innocence Project. So they're based in New York City, and we do local miscarriages of justice cases with them. And I think we have had 5 total now exonerations based on DNA evidence, working in conjunction with them. So it all started with In the Name of the Father. Before that, I wanted to be a teacher.
Oh, thank you, Rika. That's fascinating. That's absolutely fantastic. I bet you couldn't imagine when you started in Swansea, you know, in 19, whatever it was, 90 something, that you'd end up where you are today.
No, it just all lined up. It's funny how things happen.
Fantastic. And Callum, sort of to you then, what was your motivation? What was behind you studying law?
Well, none of my answer is not going to be anywhere near as interesting as the previous two ones, unfortunately. I was at sixth form, and I knew I wanted to go to university, but I was very wary of how much it was going to cost me to go to university. So I wanted to do a degree where I thought I could get, you know, a good job from it at the end, in reality. And I went to Swansea to go and speak to some professors on some open days. And I was really interested by the practicality of it, learning about practical skills. It wasn't just learning about law, it was learning about interview techniques, mediation, negotiation, mooting, and I was really interested by that. But I was also actually quite interested in history. I enjoyed that at sixth form. And studying law, in a way, you look at previous cases, which can, if it's criminal law, can go over hundreds of years, and you look what happened in the previous courts, etc. Or in equity, you can go back to the Court of Chancery, for example. And that was something I was really interested in. And probably lastly, it wasn't just doing a law degree didn't just mean you can go and do law. I felt it opened up lots of different areas I could possibly work in, whether that was in finance or for government or to become a solicitor or barrister. But I felt there was many opportunities which would be open from doing a law degree.
Oh, thanks, Callum. Yeah, law does actually open up a lot of doors, doesn't it? So yeah, thank you very much. I think I'll pass over to Debbie now.
Thanks, everyone. So I think what we've heard so far is that law can open up a lot of doors to you. And I think what's interesting about criminology is when we look at the 3 people who are here today, we see very different paths. You know, they finished up at the moment in their short careers so far in very different paths. So I guess what I'd like to ask Connor, Hannah and Amelia, and we'll start with Amelia. What sparked your interest in criminology?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a very elaborate story either, to be honest, but I'll tell you the truth. When I was at sixth form, I studied health and social care, law, sociology and philosophy, and I had absolutely no idea where I wanted to go with those 4. I very much picked subjects I was interested in rather than sort of had a career focus in mind. I'd always thought that maybe I'd want to be a police officer, but to be honest, I'd never really explored what that actually meant. It was just a title that, you know, I sort of fancied. And then looking at my A-levels, obviously then going on to university, I sort of was looking at, well, what fits with those. In sociology A-level, we'd done a module looking at sort of crime, and now I know that that was sort of the basic foundations of criminological theory, but at the time I just saw the word crime and thought, oh, that links. So looking into universities is when I first ever stumbled across criminology as a subject. It wasn't on offer when I was in sixth form. And then obviously doing my research into that, I realised it was something I wanted to do. If I was going to go into the police force, you know, it would have been a relevant degree to have had. But all I knew is that I wanted to work with people and I wanted to help people. And actually that was a degree where I could just explore lots of different aspects and, you know, could lead into a job where I could do just that. So.
Thank you. That is really interesting. And I think quite a few of our students come through that route that Amelia's just described there, that they're not quite sure where they want to go. And they might have a yearning to work within the criminal justice system, but actually they're not quite sure where they would fit within that system. So I think criminology does open up kind of all those different avenues and kind of thinking around what crime is and things like that, and how the criminal justice system actually respond. So now I'm going to come to Hannah, who I know didn't have the same traditional route as Amelia, straight from, you know, school or college into higher education. So Hannah, can you tell us your story and what sparked your interest?
Yeah, so for me, I was 27 when I decided to go back to education. From leaving school, I became a personal trainer and I worked in several gyms. Absolutely love it. I still love it now. I love training and I love keeping fit. But for me, I've got a bit of a different story to most people. My partner at the time, who is now my husband, ended up serving a custodial sentence for following getting into a fight in town. And I'd never had any sort of dealings with the criminal justice system. I'd never had any involvement in prison, anything like that at all. So it was all completely new to me. You know, we'd made a mistake. It was what it was. We had to deal with it at the time. So going into a prison to visit him was a completely new experience for me. It completely opened my eyes when I was meeting a lot of people in the visiting hall. I'd always thought, and I'll be totally honest, you think of prison as being full of monsters, as full of people who've committed really bad offences. And it opened my eyes to the fact that a lot of the time there is a lot of people in there who've made mistakes, and a lot of people's families are affected by custodial sentences and, you know, the impacts that that has. And it just made me want to help people in the same position that I had been through. You know, because when he came out of it at the other end, everything was fine. He learned his lesson. But that was what sparked my interest in studying criminology, because I wanted to get into something that meant I could help the families of offenders. I could help people to rehabilitate. So I thought that criminology was a good place to start, to give me a knowledge of the criminal justice system and, you know, the reasons for offending and, you know, all the other things that come from that, really.
Thank you, Anna. That's a very honest account. So thank you for sharing that with everybody
That's
tonight.
okay.
Thank you. Okay. So Connor, last but by no means least, over to you.
Thanks. So mine was my motivations, I suppose, and my interest was possibly twofold. I think not uncommon in criminology undergrads. My interest came from the spark to kind of want to go into policing. I did a work placement when I was I think around about GCSE level, where I went into South Wales Police for a few days, and essentially I had my eyes opened. I thought being a police officer was possibly just working on the beat, and that was just about it. And I'd kind of had 3 or 4 days where they kind of opened my eyes into the sort of plethora of opportunities that come through the police force. It's not all just what you see on TV and what comes on those flashy TV shows. And I kind of, from that age, decided that was ultimately what I wanted to do. But it also sparked the other idea, which was that at the time you didn't need a degree to be a police officer, and I had kind of thought that possibly I was too young to make too fixed of a decision. I wasn't absolutely certain that was what I wanted to do. So similar to Callum and Amelia, I knew ultimately I wanted a degree, just to kind of open my eyes to and open doors for me, should that not be my ultimate career path that I chose to go down. And I think I'll possibly benefit from that decision. So yeah, that's me. Thanks.
Thank you, Connor. Okay, back to Trish now.
You're muted, Trish, just so you know.
The refrain, isn't it? You're on mute. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to ask, really, first of all, Izzy, I just, as a precursor, I absolutely love my job. I've gone into academia, and every day for me is like, it's just fascinating. I just love the whole, enjoy getting out of bed in the morning to come and do my job, basically. So I just wanted to ask you, Izzy, first of all, what's a typical day like for you in your, when you go into work? How does it pan out?
Gosh, I mean, I wish I could say that I had a typical day. Every single day is different. So my main job is to look after a department. So it really is like the legal department for a firm. And within the legal department, obviously, there are a ton of clients that we have that are both internal and sometimes even external. So my job is to make sure that we are operating efficiently and effectively, which means that people have the resources they need to do their job well. And resources could be anything from, you know, the number of people on their teams that are supporting them, access to external law firms, access to, you know, third-party vendors, but then also, you know, looking at the tools that they need. So if anyone's been paying attention to the future of the workplace, legal departments have really been hit with technology innovation. So where we would typically have sat down and reviewed contracts, for example, manually, now there are, you know, technology solutions that can review contracts quickly, pick out pieces in the contracts that are, you know, applicable that you really need to focus in on. And it's completely changed the way that the legal profession operates from day to day. So really my job is to pay attention to how, you know, technology, AI is changing our profession and making sure that I apply it to the people who work in my department. What I failed to mention is that before doing this job, so I've been the COO for a year and a half now, prior to which I spent a good 10 years in financial crimes compliance. And so my job was actually building out the financial intelligence and investigations unit for the bank I'm at now and for another investment bank, both in New York and London. And what I loved about that, it was all of my analytical skills, my investigative skills. And again, my day was completely different. It would actually start by scanning the newspaper and seeing, you know, if there was anyone arrested for, you know, money laundering, market abuse, and then, you know, starting my case to see whether we had any exposure within the bank, and actually doing investigations, looking at the way money moved, you know, looking at accounts, seeing if we had any, you know, kind of dodgy people who owned accounts, and figuring out how to solve it. So that's what I really love. Every single day is different. It's driven by current events. It's driven by forecasting what's happening in the industry and thinking about whether it's relevant to the way that we're operating. And then the last element is people. Like my job is really focusing on people, making sure that they're happy, they have what they need to be challenged, they're developing, they're in the right jobs, and that we have an accurate reflection of the society that we serve, which means that we're not just hiring the same people who look the same, who sound the same, who think the same, but we're actually hiring a very diverse set with different backgrounds, different cultures, different experiences that ensure that we're, you know, that we're operating well as opposed to thinking in the same way.
Oh, thanks, Izzy. It's just job satisfaction is so really important, I think. You know, it's just vital going forward. I'm going to ask the same question then to Rhian. What's you know, perhaps on a typical day, but an average day, what does that entail for you?
So average day would be, I'm in court mostly every day, morning and then afternoon. I've usually got several different court appearances with different judges. Over the last year, mostly everything's been by Zoom, so it's been a bit different. But I've actually got an in-person trial this afternoon, starting at 2 o'clock. This is the first one I've had for over a year, so that's going to be interesting. I could go to court asking for people to be released from jail, so bail applications, arguments on legal motions, asking for evidence to be excluded from trials, evidentiary hearings, bench trials where the judge makes a decision, jury trials, on felony cases. I haven't done a trial for over a year, a jury trial, but we just started back up again. I make visits to the jail on a regular basis, mostly in court and at the jail, hardly any office time. So that's my typical day.
Sounds fantastic, Ray. I was going to turn my attention now to Amelia, and it's the same question to you, Amelia. What's a day like for you in Swansea University then?
Yeah, I think it's probably best if I talk pre-COVID times. Obviously, at the moment, I do lots of this, so lots of time on Zoom and things like that. But before COVID hit us, obviously, we were able to go out into schools and colleges and things like that and interact with young people a lot more. So that could be sitting down with a group of sort of 4 or 5 young people and doing activities on confidence building. So actually these young people are academically capable of going to university, they just haven't got that confidence. So we can do activities to build their confidence and actually make them realise that university is an option for them. Or it could be, talking to complete classes, giving workshops on, I obviously wouldn't be giving the workshops on things like biology and things like that, but working with academics from across the university. We work a lot with sixth form students, so they can come onto campus and try out our sort of chemistry labs and things like that and help them with the work that they're doing in college at the moment. Our largest events are sort of 300-400 people that we can have on campus at one time, basically just supporting young people in any way possible. But we work from primary all the way through to sixth form, so as you can probably imagine, those activities vary quite fast. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to being back in schools. We actually went back into a school today. So yeah, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can be back face to face supporting young people in the not too distant future.
Fantastic. Sounds hugely enjoyable. Well, sounds great, Amelia. And finally, sorry, Hannah, last but not least again. Hannah, what's a typical day like for you?
Same for me. So I'll talk more about pre-COVID because a lot less has been going on in the prison for the last year, because obviously a lot of what we do is restricted now. But you walk in through the gates and it is literally a case of looking on the wall to see where you're detailed to work in the prison. So that could be on the wing, main residential wing, which is probably takes up 80% of what we do really. So that it would involve unlocking the men first thing in the morning, so letting the releases go, so whoever's been released that day, whoever's going to court that day, get rid of them, get them gone, and then it's just the usual regime then, so it's unlocking men, sending those who are employed off to work, so it's movements around the jails. That's generally the most volatile time in the prison day really, because you've got a lot of men, a lot of testosterone flying around, moving from A to B. So once that's done, then that they stay in work till around 11:30, where we do it all again, bringing them all back, and lunchtime, and then the afternoon is pretty much the same. But it could be the case that you're detailed to work in Videolink, which is really busy at the moment because it's facilitating court hearings, probation meetings, via Zoom, so similar sort of system as we're using now really. You could be detailed to go on a hospital escort, so you could be taking somebody out into the community for an appointment of some sort. But the thing is with the custodial environment, is quite volatile, and all of these things can be easily interrupted by things that go on, such as the levels of self-harm, drug overdoses, fires. So it just depends really what comes at you in that day. You might have to put your fireman's hat on, you might have to put your paramedic's hat on, you might have to put your counsellor's hat on. It just really depends on what you're faced with that day really, which is why I love it and what makes it interesting. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell really.
Well, thanks, Hannah. It just seems everybody that you've all gone on vastly different career paths, but all getting such enjoyment out of what you're doing. So it's clearly evident. So I think I'll pass over to Debbie now for the next questions.
Of course, not everybody goes straight into employment when they graduate from Swansea University, and I guess further education, again, going on to do higher degrees is an option for a lot of our students, and certainly in criminology, a lot of our students go on to at least pursue a master's qualification. So obviously, Connor and Callum are currently taking that route, slightly different routes. So I'd like to start with Callum, and can you tell us a little bit about what you're studying, why you made the decision to go back to study, because I know you had a year away from it, and what do you hope to achieve by gaining that additional qualification?
Thank you. So when I graduated in 2019, I was pretty set on becoming a barrister. I really wanted to become a barrister in my final year. I realised that. So last year I spent studying doing the bar professional training course in London, which is it's a practical degree, obviously to set you up to become a barrister. But I think after doing that year, I realised I wanted to do another year of academic study. So I decided to apply for an LLM at Cambridge. I was fortunate enough to get in, and I've been studying predominantly commercial law topics because I want to go to the commercial bar. And it's been it's been a strange year because I've been mostly doing it like this. It hasn't felt too different really, but it's been very enjoyable. I've been able to use what I've learned from Swansea to really help me in this year. I was fortunate enough to represent the university this year in the BIS Moot, and Swansea really trained me up for mooting whilst I was there, so I was successful in the auditions, which helped. And yeah, that's really it. I'm just studying the modules for the LLM online, and hopefully start working next year. I think this will be my last year of study. I'm sure of it, actually. Maybe it's because of the year, how the year's been, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and yeah.
You never know, Callum. You might get the PhD bug. You might stay and do a PhD somewhere. And on that note, over to Connor. So tell us more about your PhD, Connor, because I think it will be a little bit bewildering to perhaps people who are here on the webinar about what you're actually doing, because you've made a bold move to go from criminology into computer science. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I think I would be a bit bewildered if I was me 2 years ago, to be honest. But yeah, so I did a straight criminology undergraduate. I did a cybercrime and terrorism master's, which is basically split between criminology and law. That was like tinkering in a little bit of uncomfort, a little bit of foreign territory. And then I kind of decided that, you know, for a few years I was looking at doing a PhD, and I pulled the trigger, and I happened to get one that's with the CDT, the Centre of Doctoral Training, but that's in computer science. So essentially it gave me the opportunity to pick my own project. I had a pre-existing interest in kind of right-wing radicals, online terrorism and social media and things like that. So I had a sort of a motive to go and get a PhD, one that had some flexibility. But yeah, that ended up meaning that I had to go from doing criminology and law to basically straight computer science and human-computer interaction. That for me was a big jump, but one that I certainly hadn't foreseen for myself. It's possibly a testament to the undergraduate that I did and the decision that I made when I was younger, that I wanted to develop skills and not necessarily limit myself to a job straight away. I think, you know, I was surrounded by a lot of people that had come into this program that were from STEM fields, so a lot of engineers, a lot of mathematicians and things, and they struggled in ways that I was quite competent in, so academic writing, presentations, and debates and things like that. Whereas the bare bones computation, I kind of had to get up to speed with, as well as perform at a master's level pretty quickly. And that got me to do a PhD now, where I'm sort of fortunate enough to jump back to criminology a little bit, see some familiar faces. They probably won't be gone by now, but they can't get rid of me. So yeah, I got 2 years left, and I'm thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing. I've had the privilege of working on a few projects already that are seeing me work on some sensitive data, some things along the lines of South Wales Police that I've been very fortunate to be involved in. So as much as that I'm academically sort of inclined at the moment, I'm also still pointing towards that career prospect. I'm still trying to get to the police, but maybe in a different avenue.
And I'm sure you'll be a wonderful asset to the police, because, you know, we all know, don't we, that the police are really under-resourced and underqualified with anything to do with online cyber issues. So I think, you know, this is certainly the way policing is pushing towards as well, isn't it? These higher degrees and the specialism as well. So I think that will really benefit you and the police in the future, I'm sure. So over to back to Trish now, and this is the last this is the last questions, isn't it? And then it's open to the panel. So get those questions coming in on the Q&A.
Thanks, Debbie. So just back to Izzy, I want to ask you is, what would be your advice if somebody was thinking of applying to Swansea? What advice would you give to somebody in that position?
Well, I think a couple of things. I mean, I knew very little about Swansea, knew very little about Wales before I went down to have a look around the campus. And what I loved was, you know, the setting was beautiful. You can see the sea, you're a short drive away from Mumbles. I initially was really concerned about, you know, diversity, you know, moving from London to Swansea. I had no idea what the diverse makeup was. And I was pleasantly surprised, actually. The university was very diverse. And just even looking at this panel, you can see that there are people from such different backgrounds who've gone on to practice and apply their degrees in such different ways. This actually reflects what struck me about Swansea and what I loved. And then also, you know, it really kind of just, it planted kind of my seed of love for Wales. You know, I ended up weirdly marrying a Welshman who wasn't at Swansea at the time, but little known fact, Rhian Jones is my sister-in-law. And, you know, my children are half Welsh. We spend a lot of time in Wales. So I have nothing but, you know, wonderful memories. And as a Nigerian who grew up in London, who, you know, kind of was born in the States and grew up in Austria, I very much felt very at home in Swansea. There's just something quite magical about it. And then I haven't started my, you know, love note to Ruth Costigan, who really was one of the most impactful lecturers I think I've ever had. She really struck a chord in me and made me so happy to have studied, happy and privileged actually to have studied under her. And yeah, so for me, Swansea was just a brilliant, brilliant experience.
Oh, thank you, Izzy. And sort of you and Rhian actually studied at Swansea, not knowing each other, different times, wasn't it? A year or two apart, and yes. Ended up becoming sister-in-law. So crazy. I'm just going to ask Hannah, what advice would you give, Hannah, to somebody thinking about coming to Swansea to study?
Oh, it's every aspect of it. I loved it. It was a really, really good 3 years for me. When I went there on my open day, because I'd been to see Cardiff as well, and as soon as I saw Swansea, I'd made my decision straight away. I like the setup of the university. It's really nice. The grounds are really nice. The lecturers are fab. I can't praise them all enough, to be honest, especially for me, because I had my youngest daughter in my second year of study, and all the lecturers were fantastic, really supportive. I didn't have to take any time off at all, and it was thanks to their supportiveness, you know, that made that possible. And I was really, really lucky and glad to graduate with the first class honours at the end of the 3 years, even with that as well, you know, on top of it all. But yeah, just everything about it. The lectures and interesting, they're well put together. I was a bit sort of apprehensive about the fact that, because I was 27, I thought, oh, I'm going to be surrounded by youngsters who are going out partying all the time, like Amelia. But yeah, it turned out it wasn't the case, and there was a few more mature students on the course, and we've all stayed in contact, and we still speak now. Yeah, it's just really good, really, really good 3 years, and I can't recommend the university highly enough, to be honest.
Thank you, Hannah. And finally, I'd just like to ask Amelia, because I know, Amelia, when you were with us, you were a student ambassador, weren't you? And you sort of, I think, benefited from that. But what advice would you give to somebody thinking about applying to Swansea then?
Yeah, I mean, like everyone said, I mean, Swansea itself is just such a beautiful place and such a friendly place. I think when you're looking around universities, you will just get a feeling and, you know, go with that feeling. You know, you can read as much as you like, you can look at as many stats as you like, but you will just get a feeling. And if it feels right, go for it. You know, it's such a supportive place. If it turns out you have made the wrong decision, you know, there's support there to, you know, help you make a right decision in the future. Just because, you know, you're not 18 doesn't mean that university isn't for you. You know, the course itself, make sure you look at the modules that are on offer. You know, what Swansea University is offering is not going to be the same that Cambridge is offering or that Bath is offering. So really make sure you've done your research on what you're actually signing up for. You know, if you've got interest in the modules, you know, that's going to make your time at university a lot more interesting, a lot more enjoyable. But yeah, just believe in yourself, really, take the jump. And it's a very safe place to make that jump. I say, you know, I moved from London and I didn't know anyone else in Swansea, and well, now I've made it my home. So yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Oh, thank you, Amelia. Well, that's all the questions I think I've got and Debbie's got. So I think I'll hand you back to Jess now, and are we opening up the floor, so to speak?
We are indeed. We're going to open up the questions to those in the audience. That was fantastic. I so enjoyed that. I'm sure those on the panel as well really enjoyed hearing what other people have been up to and the different career paths that they've gone on to since being at Swansea. So we've had a few questions that have come in through the Q&A. So I'll read them out. And then I may direct some to some of the panel, but feel free to raise your hand if you're happy to answer as well. So the first question that I've got is, what attracted you to Swansea? And I thought I'd ask Callum that question.
Myself, Yeah, it was me, was it?
Sorry, no.
Oh, sorry.
I said Callum, but we can...
Hannah, sorry. Oh, no, it's fine. I'll leave it to Callum, it's fine.
Callum, over to you.
I think, well, why did I pick Swansea? I think the first one was both my parents used to go on holiday in Swansea, and they said you need to go and check Swansea University out. So we went and had a look, and I went to the law school, and I loved it, to be honest with you. I got to speak to a lot of the professors and lecturers and learn about the course, which was a great way to learn about what's offered. But I also just loved that it was a campus. It was all in one place, and you feel like you're part of it. I've got a few friends who go into universities in different cities, and you're just kind of a part of a city, really, than rather being part of a university, if that makes sense, when it's spread across the whole city. But a campus, it's brilliant. All the there's a student union there, the nightclub's there, and you have friends in other faculties that you'll bump into all the time, so you're not just actually only making friends in law. I had loads of friends who are outside of law, and it's also, Swansea is, for me anyway, I found it was quite a small city, but that's quite nice. You don't want to have to spend too much time, I felt, traveling around too much, and it was a short journey to Wine Street of a Wednesday night and Friday night, which was nice as well. But otherwise, the academic side as well, it was a really good place to study law, and it helped me progress.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Callum. And Hannah, I will ask you the question. You had some lovely things to say earlier about Swansea as an area and enjoying it, and the staff being so welcome. I don't know if you just wanted to say a little bit more about the staff in the criminology department. I know they're so diverse and welcoming and friendly.
Yeah, they are, and they're all completely different, and I found like they've all got their own styles of learning. Like Debbie's got fab stories, obviously, from when she was in the police, and like you can really relate to the research that she does in her field. Anthony, well, he just had his own sort of style of lecturing, but he used to make us laugh every time. And I just found the lectures were always fun, even though, I think everyone prefers certain modules to others. But because of the way it's all taught, you can pick up something that you really find interesting in everything, really, and that's what I really liked. There was never a time where I thought, oh, I don't fancy this today, or, it was always good. It was always interesting. Yeah, it was a really good 3 years, really good.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Hannah. So I'm not sure who out of the panel may be best to answer this, but I'll read the question. Is finding work outside the UK after graduating difficult? So I would say probably Izzy, Rian, they would be best placed for you to answer that if you're okay with picking that up. Rian, I don't know if you want to go first, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure. So particularly in the States, that's the only place that I tried to seek employment outside the UK. Very respectful of British degrees, particularly law degrees, I would say. And also, if anyone is thinking of practicing in the States, you have to get your degree qualified by the American Bar Association. And the American Bar Association recognizes the LLB from Swansea as the equivalent to a Juris Doctor degree, which is required to take the bar exam, at least in New York. So all that you will have to do, it's not easy, but take the bar exam. You don't have to do any qualifying courses. You don't have to go back to college in any way. You can choose to take a practice course to teach you how to take the exam, but it's based on common law. So New York law is the same practically as the law of England and Wales, just, different cases, different statutes, some different principles, I would suppose, but just very respectful, I think, of British degrees and British employees. I've not had any trouble gaining employment several places. I started at the Legal Aid Society defending domestic violence victims. I did that for 2 years. That was local in upstate New York. And then I worked for the Public Defender's Office for 6 years, so that was employment. Then I started my own firm. It was just a solo practice for 5 years, and then I joined my current criminal defense firm and became a partner. So I've received no issues, and a Swansea law degree is well recognized and respected, at least in New York, where I am.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Rian. And Izzy, I don't know if you want to expand on that. Your experience
yeah,
of working out.
I would echo what Rian said. My path was very non-traditional, so I knew quite early on that I didn't want to practice law. but I wanted to leverage my law degree in whatever job I did subsequently. I also qualified as an attorney in the States, which is where Rian and I met studying for our bar exam. But an early experience interning at a Magic Circle firm really informed me that I didn't want to spend most of my youth at beck of call of a senior partner photocopying. So I decided that I wanted to actually fast forward and go work for a global organization where I could leverage my law degree. I actually ended up working in compliance for several years, which was brilliant, you know, learning about the business, learning about, you know, the global footprint of a bank. And from there, I've done, you know, so many different jobs, whether it's within, you know, financial crimes, working on anti-bribery compliance work, covering a wealth management division. I mean, I've done a whole ton of stuff. I would say, however, in the UK, now that I'm also involved in our internship program currently, if you want to, you know, get a job right out of law school, I would say try and get as many internships under your belt as possible. There are loads of vacation schemes that companies offer. You don't necessarily have to get experience within a law firm. Now, a lot of in-house legal departments are offering VAC schemes and internships to law students. So your options have been multiplied. I also think that the new SQE, you know, qualification means that you can actually go into an in-house, you know, group and qualify there. So the traditional route of having, you know, getting a training contract and having to work at a law firm is no longer your only option. So actually, it's a really good time to qualify with a law degree, because there are so many different things that you can do, whether it's working, you know, for a private entity, going the law firm route, or actually leveraging your law degree to go into other sectors.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Izzy. You've touched on a few things that relate to my next questions, actually. A attendee has asked, what do I need to be doing while studying law to make myself more employable? And another has asked, are there good resources to get internships? Trish, I hope you don't mind, but I was going to point to these questions your way in terms of the support that we offer students from an employability point of view, which kind of answers both the questions in one go, if you like, because we can talk about internships and the opportunities, which will then in turn make you more employable.
All right, thanks, Jess. Yeah, we have a really, really good internship scheme. I should say, really, it's more of a work placement scheme where we have observational work placements. So usually, pre-COVID, we had about 120 internships or work placement opportunities for students. And typically, students would take advantage of this scheme during the second year of their study after finishing the second year. And we had them from barristers' chambers, solicitors' offices, the police, local government, land registry, so a wide range of opportunities. We also have internships for a little bit more exotic. We got for about the last 8 years, we've had a scheme going with the Public Defender's Office in California, where each year 2 students get selected to go to California. We help out with the finances for flights and accommodation, and they work for a month in the Public Defender's Office. Very popular scheme. We also have links with a couple of London firms where students get paid placements there. And also we have research internships that we offer to students. So they actually get paid. They work alongside academics during the summer holidays, working on a research project that's a particular interest to the academic. And then we offer, you know, they get paid then, minimum wage or whatever. But there's this year about 20 internships happening in the college.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Trish. That's really helpful. Another student's asked about internships. Is it difficult to juggle internships alongside your study demands? Has anybody on the panel, did you do an internship while studying?
Connor would be very good to answer that question. Excellent.
Connor, over to you.
Yeah, so I did 2, I think. I think I did one in my second or third year, and then another one in a master's year. At least the way mine lined up, that it was during like Easter break or during the summer holidays, So it's worth checking the dates for these sorts of things and how they line up, whether they're full-time or part-time. The two that I did were full-time, so I was 5 days a week. Yeah, not only are they good on the CV, they're also good for work experience, making connections. I did the first internship I did, the results from which I got to present in front of a counter-terrorism panel. I think the leader of the MI6 was, or the former head of the MI6 was there. So that was a Swansea in-house internship. Another one helped to sort of guide my master's thesis. So they can be practical in terms of immediately as for your degree, as well as helping you just meet people. I've made loads of connections just through internships and the results of them. So definitely look into them, but just check the dates and the timings and things like that, and you'll find things that work out for you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Connor. That's really helpful. So the next question, I'm going to point this in Amelia's direction. It's quite Swansea University based, which is why I'm hence sending it over to you, Amelia. How easy is it to get a paying job while studying? And would you say it's enough to cover your food and rent?
Yeah, so when I was a student, I worked something like 3 different jobs at the time. So I kept my job that I'd had as a teenager back home. So when I was, we weren't in lectures and things like that, Christmas and things like that, I'd go back home and I'd, be able to pick up that work again. I worked as a student ambassador within the law school, and obviously all things around that are sort of fitted around your lectures because it's within, that department. And then I actually worked for the company I work for now, going into schools and things like that. So there was definitely time. Obviously it depends what modules you take and what your timetable looks like, and there's obviously crunch points around assessments and things like that. I don't know whether realistically it would have been enough to support me financially. I always had that money as sort of my treat money, so that was my money for going out for meals or going on holidays and things like that. But with student loans and things like that, it shouldn't be, finances shouldn't really be, a barrier for you coming to university. Obviously it's all based on personal circumstances and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it just depends what sort of person you are. I know people that worked in bars when they're at university, they finish at 5 o'clock in the morning and they were in lectures at 9 a.m. It really just does depend who you are and, sort of how much sleep you like to get, I suppose, and things like that. But yeah, definitely lots of people work while they're at university. Lots of employers like to see that you've worked while you're at university. You're not in university 9 till 5 every day, are you? So actually if you're doing other things on top of that, it just sort of shows you to be quite a proactive person. So definitely there's lots of places around Swansea you can work sort of part-time as well. We had one girl in our year, she was working part-time in the prison, so she worked 2 days a week in the prison around her studies as well. So it's not just sort of employment in bars and shops and things like that. You can actually get sort of really meaningful part-time work as well.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Amelia. Brilliant answer. So another attendee has said, I'm an international student and I've made Swansea my firm choice, which is really, really lovely news. We can't wait to welcome you in September. I would love to travel around the UK and visit my friends in different universities all around the UK. Would that be difficult to do while studying? Is there anyone particular who has a burning desire to answer that in terms of weighing up seeing friends? Excellent, Callum. I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, short answer, I did it loads. I've been to visit most major cities in the UK. Most of my friends went to Manchester, quite a lot will go to London, Cardiff, etc. So you've got plenty of time in your studies to go and do all of that. Just to add on to the question before, I worked 3 jobs at university as well. It's really doable, all of it, as long as you plan. There are enough hours in the day, and I did enjoy myself as well. I did have a few jobs, but I still went out loads and socialised with friends and went and travelled. There's plenty of time in the day, and there's plenty of jobs in Swansea to be able to do stuff like that. There's plenty of available work. But yeah, short answer, there's plenty of time to go and visit people as well. But you enjoy Swansea so much, you never have to leave anyway.
Excellent. Yeah, great answer. Brilliant. So a very direct question for Izzy. Izzy, how did you get your job?
Oh, wow. Because I was the most qualified person for the role. So long story is that I completely fell into it. As I said, I did 10 years of financial crimes compliance, completely loved it. I actually got headhunted and offered a role to go and be the group head of financial crimes for a well-known insurance company. And as I had my contract in hand and was about to tender my resignation from my current organisation, my boss said to me, "Look, I've got this brilliant opportunity, and I don't know whether you'd be interested, but I can guarantee you that it's going to be fun and that every day is going to be a different challenge." And I thought, I have a well-specced out role, or I have the option of fun. So obviously I went for fun. And didn't look back. Why was I selected for the role? Because over the years, I've always come in and rebuilt functions within organizations. And I'm really good at pattern reading. So hence the whole horizon scanning, understanding what the kind of up and coming challenges are and how to prepare for them. That's something I realized was a skill set that I had. So combining the two has really placed me well for the role that I have now. I love interacting with people. I'm great at developing relationships, and I'm really good at building out programs and frameworks. And obviously with my degree from Swansea, I was well prepared for this role as well.
Excellent, brilliant. Thanks very much, Izzy. So I can see, let me just have a little look. There's lots of questions, so it's great to see everybody's been so engaged. Similar question for Rian. Rian, how did you get your job in New York City?
Okay, so I'm in upstate New York. Everyone thinks it's the city. So it's actually 7 hours away from New York City by car. But,
whoa, I did not know that.
Albany. Yeah, no one knows that. So I'm in a city called Rochester. It's in upstate New York, Western New York. So I got my job because, let me think. So actually I started with an internship. So I worked for free for the Legal Aid Society for maybe a month or 5 weeks. And then they applied for a visa for me. So then I worked for them, and then just getting to know people and then applied to the public defender's office. Because I was a in-court attorney, I knew all the litigators by that point, and I got hired there. And I suppose your reputation just builds. And then I just moved on from one job to the other.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Rian. I can see a really nice question. To the past students, what was the biggest challenge or the most daunting moment in your degrees? And was there any point when you questioned if it was too difficult? And how do you remotivate yourself when your workload feels like too much? Now, Hannah, you mentioned you had quite a lot to juggle whilst you were doing your degree. I think you would be an excellent person to answer this question. So yeah, were there any standout moments for you?
Yeah, I would probably, definitely say, obviously, well, when I started, I already had a little girl. She was 3. So that in itself really was a bit daunting. The thought of, going back. I was working as I worked throughout my first year as a personal trainer in the gym, not far from where I live, which was easier really, because obviously the university was only down the road and my work was only down the road as well. But then obviously, like I said, in my second year, I got pregnant with my youngest daughter, and I thought, oh God, I really didn't want to take a year out or anything like that, because I was afraid that I wouldn't go back, and I'd be, I was afraid I wouldn't be able to remotivate myself. But I think the lecturers, like I said, are also supportive at Swansea, and you've got your personal tutor as well, which is really helpful. I had Lela Nouri as mine. She was great. I can't fault her at all, or any of the lecturers really supportive. And yeah, it's just I found that everyone was so approachable, so you don't mind asking for help when you need it, or asking for advice if there's something you're struggling with. So even if there are times where you feel not motivated, or feeling like you're struggling, the support's there anyway at Swansea. That's what I personally found anyway. So yeah, you get through it anyway.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Hannah. Yeah, I think the support that you get from your academics is what pulls you through. I know I had many a dissertation meeting and meetings with my personal tutor thinking I'm never going to get to the end of my degree, and they always pull you through. Callum, I thought I might also ask you part of that question. So how do you remotivate yourself when your workloads feel like too much still in study at the moment?
Well, at the moment, I try and just go outside and go out in fresh air and get out of the library usually, and try and organise social interactions. I think there's a thing with law, and I'm not sure why. I noticed this when I was studying. I do think this might be exclusive to law, is that other law students like to tell other law students how much they're working and how they do like to do crazy hours in the library. I'm not sure how true that all is, or whether it's just an image that comes from Suits that you have to tell everyone how well you're doing all the time. But it's not really the case. Organise social events to go out and give yourself deadlines. And one thing about law, especially at Swansea, is that you get a lot of support from all the lecturers. They're all very kind, and they'll give you whatever you need, really, any questions you have. There's going to be difficult times in a law degree, as there is in any degree, but you just need to set out your goals very clearly, what you want to achieve on that particular day instead of long-term goals, and get a bit draining doing that, and keep up with the work. I think one thing that's very easy to do at university is, because you're given a bit of independence, is to not really do anything for 8 weeks, and then you have exam in 4 weeks, and then panic starts to ensue. And you will see it happen when you go to university. It does happen. It's just stay on top of it, and it is very doable, and you can manage it alongside other things. But hang in there, and you'll get lots of support from all the lecturers in Swansea. They are all fantastic. And just to give some shouts out, Trish taught me, and she helped me out in both my modules for medical law, which is fantastic.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Callum. And I could see, Connor, did you have something to add?
Yeah, possibly, at the risk of repeating what two people have said already. But I would say it's almost inevitable if you commit to something for 3 years to kind of have like a very consistent and linear kind of motivation and drive. I think it's unavoidable, whether that's straight away, whether there's a life event that's occurred, or whether it's just the process itself. There is going to be a dip and maybe a point where you struggle. I think anyone on this panel would be lying if they say that they hadn't considered dropping out at some point. I'm 2 years into a PhD and I still thought about dropping out. It's borderline unavoidable. I think one of the things that I picked up on quite early on, and one of the things that really brought me to Swansea, was that you could really tell that people care. And at the risk of sounding like a bit of a cliche, the sense of community from Swansea, I've had nothing but good things to say. I think when you go to open days and talks like these, you really have to kind of like gauge the people that are talking to you. And I think I read Swansea as being very, very kind of passionate, not only towards their careers, but towards the students. There was a big push on students having positive experiences. And it's not something that I expected to lean on, but it's something that I found myself leaning on. It was academics like Debbie in the call, and PhD students also. You'll find that the connections that you make early on will pretty much, you'll really reap the rewards of them. So as much as I'd say, engage and make friends, engage in the academia as well. Talk to your lecturers, talk to your peers. You'll probably find that you lean on them in ways that you hadn't really foreseen when you stepped in.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Connor. They're all really, really nice answers. So I'm conscious of time. I know that we've been on here for over an hour now, which doesn't feel like it. We've had such a nice conversation. Thank you so much, everybody. I've got 1 or 2 questions which I just want to ask before we close today. But I just want to say at this point, if you have any specific questions, you please feel free to email me, and I can also contact members of the panel as well. If there's any specific questions that you would like to ask them, I'm sure they'll be happy to help. So just one more question regarding international students. Do international students find the same opportunities in the law field after completing their LLB degree? And I think that is really an interesting question. We get lots of international students that are studying with us at Swansea. And obviously it's dependent on where you wish to study as well, as Rian's mentioned, the different conversion courses you may need to do if you're studying elsewhere. But just to reassure you, we get lots of international students that are studying here at Swansea. Is there anyone who wants to add anything to that question in particular?
Well, I mean, I might add, just from seeing a lot of applications from law students currently, there's a healthy mix of international students who apply for roles at my organisation and for some of the law firms that we partner with. So it's definitely not a barrier.
That's really helpful. Thanks very much, Izzy. And then lastly, I'm going to be a transfer student into the criminology programme from the US. Do you think that will be a difficult transition? Debbie, probably best place for you to answer that one.
I don't think it will be. I mean, we do have students coming from the States quite a lot onto the programme, and usually they love it. And we're still in touch with some of them that have left us, and you know, they keep in touch for years with us. So I don't think the transition will be difficult. I think the way we teach might be different from what you're used to in the States. It's a very relaxed format that we have within the criminology department. But again, that's quite unique across the sector in England and Wales as well. And, you know, every lecturer, like you've already heard, has their own style of teaching. But I don't think the transition will be hard for you. I mean, every student in the law school gets an academic mentor, and that's your first point of contact. We've also got peer-to-peer support schemes as well to help and settle you in. And you can always come and talk to me or Tracy as head of department. You know, I'm sure you'll find the transition fairly easy and straightforward. And Swansea is a lovely place to come and study.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Deb. And also just to say, there was a question, but it wasn't a question, it was a comment. I would love to have tea and cake with you all. You have opened my mind to the options ahead of me. Thank you so much, which I think is a really nice way to end today's webinar. I really hope it's been inspiring for the students that are considering studying law or criminology with us at Swansea, or indeed who are studying law and criminology with us at Swansea. It's really, really eye-opening to see all of the different options that students can go on to after graduating. And I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to all of our panelists for joining us tonight. We really couldn't have done this session without you, and it really, really has made such a fantastic end to a brilliant first day of our Law and Criminology Showcase. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Deb and Trish, for being my lovely hosts. It's been really, really great session. So thank you very much, everybody. I'm going to finish the recording now and then end the webinar. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Bye.